Okay, so today we are doing my end of week reading vlog, which is a vlog that I do that wraps up all of the books that I have read for that week. And this week is the first week of July 2020. And I've had a pretty good reading week, which is really nice considering my last couple of weeks have been a bit hit and miss. So I'm really excited to talk to you about the books that I have been reading this week. Starting off with this book, Shadows of Self by Brandon Sanderson. This is the very first book that I read this week, and it is the first book that I read this month. This is the fifth book in the Mistborn series, although Mistborn is split up into two eras, the first era and the second era, so you could also call this the second book in the second era of the Mistborn series. And it reads as such. The first era, to me, is very different to the second era. It is only very loosely bound together, the first and the second era. I feel the second era is more of a detective era rather than a fantasy era. There are fantasy elements in there, don't get me wrong, but it's more of a detective genre with fantasy being a subgenre. So I wasn't expecting this when I read the first book in the second Mistborn era, The Alloy of Law. I read that 2 months ago and I didn't really like it. But going into this book and expecting that that's what it was going to be, that it was going to be more of a detective story with fantasy elements rather than an outright fantasy story, I had lower expectations, and because of that I actually walked away really enjoying this book. I felt that it was a better story than the first book in the second era. There is just a whole lot more that happens in this book that I quite enjoy. I don't want to go into too many details about it, and in fact, I didn't even do a review on this book, which, had you asked me in March or even April if I foresaw myself excluding a review for a Mistborn book, I would have said you're crazy. Of course I'm going to review every single book, but I didn't review this one because I don't think I need to, honestly, and I don't think I need to do a review for this one. I'm just gonna leave it in my reading vlogs. Yeah, it was good. It follows Waxilium, who is the detective, and his partner Wayne. Waxilium, to me, is a dry character. We don't really know a lot about him at all. His side character is very much needed because he provides comic relief to such a dry character, but the plot in this story was actually okay. I ended up giving this book 4 stars, and I enjoyed the journey. The second last book I'm going to read this month will be the final book in the Mistborn series, so I look forward to seeing how that will go. But yeah, this is the penultimate book, and it was much better than the one that came before it. The second book that I read in the first week of July 2020 was this book, the fifth book in the Vampire Academy series. So with both the fifth book in the Mistborn series and this book, they were both carried over from June because I didn't have time to read them. So they were carried over to the first week of July. Both of them are the penultimate books to the series, so second last book. And I came into reading this book really not knowing what to think. I had read the first 4 books in the Vampire Academy series. I rated book 1 3 stars, book 2 3 stars, book 3 was amazing. I gave it 5 stars. Book 4 I gave 3 stars, but even now looking back, I feel that that was a generous rating because I didn't enjoy it really at all. But this book really surprised me because of how much I did not enjoy the 4th book in the series. I went into this one a little bit anxious and worried about how this one would go, but Rochelle Mead has bounced back in a very big way. This book really pushes the boundaries of character development in a very big way, and I really appreciated that. Being that it's the penultimate book in the series, it sets us up for the final book in such a massive way. I have never felt the I want to say sting, even though I don't think that's the right word. The sting of a cliffhanger so much in this series until I read this book. The final sentence in this book made me want to pick up book 6, the final book, right away. And I had to force myself to not do that. But I really enjoyed myself. This book continues on the journey with Rose Hathaway, who is a Dhampir, who was training at Vampire Academy to become a guardian to a Moroi, who are the royal version of vampires. Not only are they the royal version of vampires, but each Moroi has a magical ability that is connected to an element, be it earth, air, fire, water, or spirit. And so this book is just amazing. There's really not a lot that I can say about this book at all without giving away spoilers because it is so deep into the series. But again, I just want to lean on character development. It was so amazing. The plot was really good too. I enjoyed myself from the start to the end. And yeah, there are some shocking moments that occur towards the end of the book that really had me kind of, going, whoa, did not expect that. One thing that I also really appreciate about this book is that after reading book 4, and you can check out my review of book 4 in my playlist under Vampire Academy, it has its own playlist, I had a prediction of how the series was going to end. My prediction of how the series was going to end not only was did it seem like this book was going to lead us there, but by the time we got to the halfway mark of this book, my prediction for how the series would end was already done and dusted. So that's not how it's going to end, and I'm really happy about that because when I predicted how the series was going to end, I was predicting it in a way that I did not want to see what I thought was going to happen. It did happen, but it wrapped up by the time we got halfway through this book, the penultimate book. So that made me really happy. I have no idea how the series is going to conclude, and I'm really excited about that. But I know I've said character growth many times, but I think that's the best thing I can say about this book. Despite the fact that I really enjoyed the plot, I enjoyed everything about this book. The biggest praise that I can give this book is the character development, the character arcs that all of the characters have gone through in this series. It feels like things came together in a really good way in this book, and I'm so excited to get on to the final book at the end of this month. It will be the very last book that I read this month. So that's that book. And now we get on to the final book that I read this week, and I literally just finished reading this book 5 minutes before I started filming my end of week vlog, so I'm still a little bit up in the air about it, and I'm still very deep within my feelings about this book, and I haven't taken a moment to get my thoughts together on this book, but I will say expect a review to come out because I'm definitely going to be reviewing this book. Oh, by the way, I just want to jump back to Vampire Academy, so I'll just very quickly do that. In fact, I'm going to jump back to both. So, I just want to give you the genre and the star rating. So, Shadows of Self is an adult fantasy, high fantasy with hard magic systems book that I gave 4 stars to. But as I said, for me, I feel like it's more of a detective story with a subgenre of fantasy. Again, gave this book 4 stars. With Vampire Academy Spirit Bound, this is a paranormal... Something just fell in my bookshelf, I apologize. I think it's either a paranormal book or it's an urban fantasy. It's a YA, so if you don't know what that is, YA is young adult. And yeah, I enjoyed it so much. I enjoyed everything about it that it got the ultimate rating that it can get. This book got 5 stars, and it's only the second book in the series that I've given 5 stars to, so that does say a lot. Alright, now let's get back on to what I was saying about the final book I've read this week. So as I was saying before I went back to do my ratings, I am still very much in my feelings with this book I'm about to talk to you guys about because I just finished it 5 minutes before I started doing this end of week reading vlog, and I'm going to be doing a review on it very soon. I think in my time I'm going to do it tomorrow, but I don't know when it will be available for you guys, but take a look. Keep an eye out for it is what I'm trying to say. Not take a look. Keep an eye out for it. It'll be up at some point during the week. That book is this book, Letters to the Lost by Bridget Kemmerer. Now, if you saw my July TBR, you saw me talking about how I came into knowing about this book's existence, and it was very much thanks to my favourite booktuber, whose name is Murphy Napier. If you have not checked her out before and you love reading, I definitely recommend you check her out because she is amazing. I am anytime I get a spare 5 minutes to myself, I'm always watching her stuff, and if I get to completely up to date with her stuff, I go back to the start and watch it again. Anyway, Murphy has spoken about Letters to the Lost many times and how it is such an underrated book and a book that she loves so much, and that anyone that can read it really should read it because it is just so amazing and so very much underrated. Now, I thought that this book was a YA romance because I always do research before I do my TBR videos to see the age rating of a book and the genre of the book so that I can let you guys know in case you guys are interested. You at least know what the age rating is and what the genre is. When I did that research, it said YA romance. I got to the end of this book and I thought, hang on, it doesn't make sense to me that this is a YA romance. So I was surprised that it was given that genre. I went back and looked very quickly at a video that Murphy did. She has, as far as I know, not done a review on this book, which I'm a bit surprised about, but that's okay. I don't know if Murphy watches my videos, but Murphy, if you're watching, please do a review on this book because I'd love to see what you have to say about it. I'll definitely be checking out your Goodreads, Murph. Anyway, but I will definitely do a review on it. In that particular video, which was a compilation of different books she was talking about to do with a certain subject, she classified this book as a YA contemporary, which I completely agree suits this book as the top genre more than a YA romance. Now, for those of you who don't know, a contemporary is a book that doesn't fall into any other known category. So it's a book that seems like it's revolving around things that could occur in everyday life that can't fit into any other known categories, such as fantasy, which is not everyday life, obviously, but, you know, fantasy, romance, horror, sci-fi, dystopian, the list goes on, historical fiction, classic, da-da-da-da. So if it's not those, and it seems like it could happen in everyday life, then it's a contemporary, and that's what she calls this. And I'm going to make a correction to my TBR video and say that I completely agree. This is a YA fantasy. It's not a YA romance. So yeah, I'm sorry that I misled you. With the research that I did, that's what it showed me. And after reading it, I can confirm it's a YA contemporary. This book is a really hard-hitting contemporary. I went into this book thinking it was going to be a lot of fun. And I will say, for the first half of the book, it is pretty fun to read. The writing style is really easy to read, and the chapters are really, really short, which makes you feel like you're flying through the book really quickly. So basically the premise of this book is that it revolves around two people. It is a dual perspective, but it is a really easy dual perspective to follow. For those of you who have trouble with multi-perspective books, please know that this is a really easy dual perspective to follow. So it revolves around Juliet and Declan. So Juliet is a 17-year-old girl whose mother has recently passed away, and she wrote a letter to her mother and left it by her mother's tombstone. Declan is a guy who had recently gotten in trouble with the law, and as part of his punishment, he's doing community service at that graveyard where he's mowing the lawn. As he gets to Juliet's mother's grave, he needs to pick up things before he can mow. It's just part of the rule of the graveyard. If there's any items that could get damaged while you're mowing, you have to pick them up, put them somewhere safe, mow the area, and then put it back. It makes sense. But while he's picking up the stuff from Juliet's mother's grave, he sees the letter that's there, and something overcomes him, and he ends up deciding to read the letter. Not only does he read it, but he really deeply connects with what Juliet was saying in the letter, that he writes 2 words down the bottom of the letter, "me too," and leaves it back by the tombstone when he has finished mowing. Juliet comes back the next time she goes to visit her mum's grave, sees that he's written "Me Too" at the bottom and gets really angry about it. But ultimately, they end up writing to each other. They start off writing through letters, and then their means of communication change to other types of means. But they're really able to help each other through a lot of different things. As I said, the first half of the book was really easy to get through. The second half of the book was really hard hitting, and there were moments where I was on the verge of tears reading the end of this book because, man, it packs a punch at the end that you're not expecting at all, because Bridget Kemmerer writes, to me, she's good at what she does. In fact, Bridget Kemmerer, to me, wrote this book so well that even when I was a quarter of the way through, I knew I wanted to read more of her work. I love her as an author, even from, 1/4 of the way through. But the first half of the book, it's written in a way that it's really just easy to read, not just the writing style, but what's being written about is really easy to read. The second half of the book, wham, it just hits you. And oh my gosh, I'm still lost in my feelings about this book, but I loved this book so much. And I went into this book with an idea of how it was going to go. And I was right in some ways, but completely wrong in other ways. And I hadn't officially done my Goodreads review. I haven't done it at this time of recording, but I can honestly give you my rating because I know. I hadn't even thought about what I was going to rate it, but now as I'm talking about it, I know exactly what I'm going to rate it. I'm going to be giving this book 5 stars because it deserves every single star that it achieves. It is... All I'm going to say is if you have dealt with death in your life that has affected you in any sort of a way, know going into this book that death is probably the biggest topic that is talked about. And I don't want to say that it's going to trigger you, but to be on the safe side, I'll say it might trigger you. But what these two characters can do for each other by writing letters to each other is so very much, and it was just so amazing. So I'm going to second what Murphy said, and I don't always do that. There are books that Murphy has recommended to read that I've read that I haven't been a fan of, but I completely agree with her assessment of this book. If this is still an underrated book, then it is a book that everyone should be reading because it is so well done. And yeah. Oh man. This book hit me. It just really hit me, especially from the second half onwards. The first half was just, as I said, really easy to read. And for a dual perspective, that's not something I say very often because sometimes I find more than one perspective to be really tough to keep up with. But this book made the perspectives a breeze to get through. But the second half of the book, man, it's so good. So there'll definitely be a review coming out for this book because, gosh, it deserves it. And if any of what I've said so far intrigues you to pick up this book, I highly, highly recommend it. There is a second book in the series, which I only found out recently, and I do not, for the life of me right now on camera, remember what it's called, but I can see the cover in my mind, and I'm definitely going to do what I can to add it to my August, wow, can you believe we're in July? My August TBR, because I love this book so much. I actually wouldn't mind putting a couple of Bridget Kemmerer's works onto my August TBR just because I love her as an author. Even though I've only read one book, I fully trust Bridget Kemmerer as an author. So, oh my gosh. It's going to be interesting to see who my favourite author is come the end of the year because Bridget is rivaling Brandon Sanderson at the moment, and I never thought I would say that an author could rival Brandon Sanderson, but she's rivaling Sanderson, she's rivaling J.K. Rowling. It was just so amazing. So look out for the review. It will be coming out at some point over the course of the next week. And in my reviews, I do spoiler and spoiler free. So if you haven't read the book and you want to learn more about it in a spoiler free way, you will get that from the first part of my review. All right, let's move on. So now we come to the point of my end of week reading vlog where I discuss with you guys what I'm going to be reading for next week. In case you guys want to buddy read with me, I give you enough time to do that. So the first book that I'm going to be reading in week 2 of July 2020 is The Hunger Games' third book. I've got a ton of bookmarks in here. I haven't started reading it yet, but I just like having my bookmark in where the first chapter is. So, so I apologize about that. I have not started yet. I won't start this till tomorrow. It is Sunday today. I will start it on Monday. But this is the third book in the Hunger Games series. Now, the Hunger Games is right behind me. It's right here in my dystopian section of my bookshelf. I read the first book, The Hunger Games, knowing nothing at all about the series, and I walked away loving it so much. I gave it 5 stars. The way that Susan Collins can make you feel like you feel exactly how her protagonist feels was really hard-hitting and done so well. I really appreciated the first book. The second book, there was something I wanted to see, and there was a twist that occurred at some point in the second book that ensured that what I wanted to see wouldn't happen, and so that kind of annoyed me a little bit, and the way that it ended, the second book, didn't make me so anxious to want to pick up this book like I do with Vampire Academy Book 6, and I am still very anxious with this book to see the direction that Susan Collins is the name of the author, that she's taking it to. So I don't know. We'll see how we go, but I have promised myself it is DNF season. I haven't DNF'd a book for a long time, but if I don't like this book, I will DNF it if it's not going in the direction that I want it to, but we'll see how we go. So I'm going to be reading this book, I think, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I think, but don't quote me. And when I do my midweek review on Thursday, we will be able to discuss how that went. After that book, I'm going to be reading a book that I'm very much excited about and I cannot wait to get to, and it has been a struggle to put it off for this long, and that book is Stuart Turton's The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. This is a YA mystery, and it is a tome, 505 pages long, and the basic premise of this book is that it is about a woman who keeps dying, and there is, I believe, a guy, Aidan, yes, there is a guy who the day keeps repeating for him, and he wakes up in the body of a different person. They're at a party, I think, something like that. He wakes up in the body of a different person, but other than that, the exact same day keeps repeating, and it's his job to work out who killed her. It's not a detective story. It's more the way I imagine it, and I'll correct myself if I'm wrong, is that it's kind of a party trick that some person has come up with in that way that they can make the day repeat again. So obviously there's a little bit of fantasy in there, where he has to work out who's killed her. And so he'll just keep continually replaying their day again and waking up in another person's body that was there at this party that they're at until he works out who killed Evelyn Hardcastle. And so I'm really excited to read this because I was never obsessed with Groundhog Day, but I always appreciated the idea of repeating the day over and over and over again to learn something or to gain something out of it. So I'm really excited about this, and we'll see how we go. Now, just very quickly, in case there's a little bit of confusion, because there certainly was for me, so this particular book that I'm holding is called The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. There is another version of this book called The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and so I did a little bit of research because I was starting to wonder, am I reading a completely different book? And I'm really happy that I found the information that I did, because apparently there were some issues when it came to publishing this book in the US, and they couldn't publish it as The 7 Deaths. They had to add the half, I think for copyright reasons or something like that. Don't quote me, but there was a reason why they had to add the half to the title for the American version, but it is the exact same story, I've been assured. So I'm really happy about that. So just answering that in case you were confused, and definitely quite relieved for myself that it is still the same book. It's just my version is called The Seven Deaths, and the American version is called The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. So I believe I'm going to be reading this book from Wednesday through to Friday. So I'll be able to talk to you a little bit more. At least I'll be able to talk about the beginning of this book with you guys when I do my midweek vlog on Thursday next week. And the final book that I'm going to be reading for week 2 of July 2020 is a YA contemporary that I'm extremely excited to read the book because the book is the original source material. I have seen the show from episode 1 all the way through to the very last series finale, I should say. I saw the series finale very recently because it only just came out, and so it's good to go back to the original source material and compare and contrast and see how I go with the actual book. And that book is called 13 Reasons Why, and it is by J. Asher. So for those of you who know the show's first season came about thanks to the original source material of this book. The show is a very controversial show because it deals with teen suicide, teen drug use, teen sexual assault, and many other hard-hitting issues that are generally swept under the carpet or kept rather quiet. So I really appreciated what the show itself was doing, but it did originate from this book. Now, it does say here that it is a Netflix show, and that's where I saw it, and this is the Netflix cover because this is the picture of the actor who plays the protagonist in the show. But the book itself is the original source material. I just have the cover of the, now that the show's come out, cover of the book. But it is still the same book, and I'm really excited to see, you know, what they took from the book to create the show. And I'm assuming that there are going to be either some additional things in here, or maybe there'll be some things in here that were done differently to how they did in the show. I don't know, but I'm really excited to see. So that's what I'll be reading this week, and I believe I'm challenging myself to read this 288-page book over the course of 2 days, which shouldn't be too hard for me. That'll be about 144 pages a day, which, yeah, that doesn't seem too hard for me. So I'll be reading this over the course of the weekend for week 2 of July 2020. So these are the books that I've read for the first week of July 2020. Shadows of Self, which I gave 4 stars to. Vampire Academy Book 5, Spiritbound, that I gave 5 stars to. And Letters to the Lost by Bridget Camera, that I also am going to give 5 stars to. These are the books that I'm going to be reading this week, starting for week 2 in July, starting off with the 3rd Hunger Games book, Mockingjay, and then moving on to the 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and then moving on to 13 Reasons Why by J. Asher. And that's where we're going to leave it. That is my reading vlog update for the end of week. So my end of week reading vlog update. Okay, so we are going to definitely leave that there. I'm letting you guys go. Peace, blessings, and so much love. If you've read any of the books that I read this week, or even any of the books that I'm going to be reading in week 2, comment below and let me know what you thought of them. But please do be mindful of keeping your comments as spoiler-free as possible, not only for myself, because I don't want to be spoiled for the books I'm going to read in the following week, but also for others who have not read those books before. I understand that some of these books have a massive fan base, and you may want to convince others to read this book, but there are ways to do it without spoiling it. And honestly, I don't know about you guys, but for me, if a book is spoiled for me, I was going to say if a book is spoiled for me. If a book is spoiled for me, it makes me less likely to want to read it. So please do keep in mind to keep your comments as spoiler-free as you possibly can. If you would like to talk to me in a spoiler-filled way about the books that I read this week, you can email me. My email is linked in the description, and I will be very happy to talk to you guys over there via email. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I'm letting you guys go. Peace, blessings, and so much love. I post videos every Thursday and Saturday with reviews and extras in between, and I'll see you then. Mwah! Happy reading. Bye guys. Bye.